I personally am in the Tampa area in Florida.
Get out of here.
So we have a little connection, I guess.
Yes, we do. Where in Tampa, you mind me asking? Where are you?
I'm right outside of Tampa in Lakeland.
Oh, okay.
Do you know of Lakeland?
Nice. I do. I saw many a concert in Lakeland. That's where we would all drive up to go to concerts if they wouldn't come to Bayfront Center.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my first concert in Lakeland was Jefferson Starship and Night Ranger. There you go. In Lakeland. Van Halen there, so they were out there. I saw a bunch of bands there in Lakeland.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about, I watched your movie, and Barry Munday, and I loved it. I mean, I thought it was hysterical and really moving, too.
Thank you.
So when you got the script, what about it appealed to you?
Well, I felt like it was just a real different story. I felt like it was, one of the most original takes on a romantic comedy and coming of age story of two people that I had ever read. I mean, once I got sort of past the quirkiness of the situation and the of his accident, and then I really felt like it was something I could really relate to, about a guy gaining his identity, what it's like to become a father, and having his goals in life and all those things that you see in a lot of movies, but never through this in this manner. And I loved it. I really did. In 5 minutes with Chris Durenzo, our director, and that he was just game for having a real collaborative effort.
Yeah. What fascinates me about it is that it does have a very quirky quality about it, and I mean, it's very funny, and yet it always feels real. And I'm curious, from a performance standpoint, if that was a delicate balance to get with the tone. Was there a fear of being too broad with it at all?
Well, I mean, I don't think so, because I felt like his situation was actually very real. I only know one way to play a character, which is from the inside out, I guess, without getting too technical. I mean, whatever the character's reality is, whether it's, Greek theater or an intimate film. And with this, even as outlandish and quirky and funny and broad as the characters could be, it was actually a real genuine, it's a very heartfelt story. I mean, the two people that just can't seem to get along at all, and yet as extremely negative as she is, being Ginger, he's extremely positive, and there are a lot of really great aspects about Barry that I really love playing. And he's a very optimistic person. He never asks her to change. He never, it's like these two people found each other, and they're probably the only people that are meant for each other. So I feel like once you sort of have that backbone of a real story, and there's a real genuine relationship there, and a very real one, then you can go as far as you want. So that's why we could have so much fun with Barry at the beginning of the movie and what he was like before the accident and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. This might be a stupid question, but in a previous show, we've been kind of examining Brian De Palma thrillers in a series of shows we've done, and there's kind of socio-political aspects. And we were talking about a movie of his called Raising Cain, and it was brought up that movie is really about the changing face of masculinity, how the gender roles have kind of changed in a way in the past 20, 30 years. Do you sense that, and do you feel like this movie speaks to that as well?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I think it's, that's always, to me, very fascinating. I've always been attracted to characters that, in dealing with their masculinity or being emasculated, or what it's like to be a man, and I think that this movie goes along with that. I think any of those similarities or themes that you're seeing, I think, are just prevalent in movies about what people want to see and what people want to make, no matter what the whatever the device is, whether it's this kind of comedy or like you said, a De Palma film. I think you ultimately come down to characters that you want, that you care for, that you want to pull for, and things that interest people. So that's obviously more of a reflection on the writers, I guess, than of the times.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is a terrific script for Barry Munday and a great cast. I mean, I was very delighted by all the faces that turned up. Sybil Shepherd and Malcolm McDowell. And, it's a great cast.
I mean, just awesome. I mean, that shows you the kind of love that people had for not only for the script but to work with Chris. I mean, it was pretty great to get that group of people in there. I mean, it really was quite a treat.
Yeah. Do you, when you're doing it, is there a moment, or is there a time when you feel where you know that it's working, that your performance is there, or is there always kind of an uncertainty until you see the finished product?
I mean, I think, it's funny, we were talking about this earlier, because in theater, if you go home and you go, oh, man, I didn't get it, and you're like, oh, well, I'll get it tomorrow. Whereas in film, if you go home and you wake up in the middle of the night going, I didn't get that scene, like, it's done, sorry.
Yeah.
I think when we were coming up because I understood the journey of Barry, I felt like what I needed to get right was his look and his demeanor. And so that's when Chris and I it was really just one conversation where he was like, what about, puka shells on a bracelet? I was like, awesome. What about a diving watch? Great. What about a rugby shirt? Awesome. How about a woven belt? I mean, we just literally were starting to just create him. We're thinking about, where the time and he was coolest, what he thought, which was in sort of late, early to mid 90s, and he's sort of still hanging on to that. And I said, why don't we still, I just done Watchmen, and I said, well, let's keep a little of the, I'll keep most of my weight up here and just kind of still be doughy and like you sort of post college when you come back and you don't really care and you sort of don't, a little too many beers at college and not enough working out. And so all that was creating the look. So I felt like once we sort of had the look down, I felt like, okay, I've got him now. Yeah.
You mentioned Watchmen, and I was curious because you have done the big studio films like Watchmen, the higher budget films, and then you've done a lot of work in the indie film world too.
Right.
As a performer, is there a different kind of demand on you according to which type of film it is?
I mean, there is in the sense that, like, on Watchmen, rarely are you going into work a day and having to do several pages of dialogue. Whereas on this movie, every day was about 8 pages of dialogue. So there are certain demands that, on a small movie. It's a similar thing with Hard Candy, I remember, too. I mean, just because you're moving quicker, which means that there's a pressure that's put on, but not in a bad way. The movie might have been different if it was a much bigger budget movie. You would have had more time, and maybe the performances wouldn't have been as sort of fresh and, in Chris's style, too, of doing a lot of things in masters and not doing a lot of coverage. I mean, that takes a lot of guts, to do a comedic scene in one take. I mean, you're usually, a typical comedy is doing a lot of, these quick cuts and the music and, sort of, well, we'll take the best line reading and give me 8 different options. So we didn't have that luxury, You did the scene a few ways, and then you had to move on. And if you were going to play and rehearse and add lines, then you better do it on the first take because you're not going to get a lot of time to change it here. Yeah, and I know that you love theater, and you're going back to the theater real soon too. And when you're describing what it's like to perform in an indie film, excuse me, it sounds like that's as close as you get to kind of the theatrical process of performance. As it gets with film. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is. I mean, it's funny because I'm not one to just say, oh, in independent film you have a lot of freedom and in studio films you don't, because, look, two of the most fun I've had on sets and the most collaborative, really, were Watchmen and A-Team as well, and those were big budget movies. So it really falls to the hands of the director, and your producers to sort of give you that kind of confidence and that and have that kind of vibe on set. So I'm and I've been on small films where it's been incredibly tense. People not having enough money. Well, we got to cut this shot. We got to cut this. We got to cut that. We don't have time. And that's just comes down to poor budgeting, the director not knowing what he wants to shoot, not being on the same page as a DP, line producer looking over your shoulder. I mean, it can be very stressful making a small budget film because it's more, you cannot afford to go over on that day. So it's really different for each case, and depending on the quality of the actual life on set. You know what I mean? It's not so much dictated by small film or large film.
Yeah. You've been busy. I see you have Insidious coming out. That just premiered in Toronto. And then Morning Glory. Do you feel really confident about those two films as well?
I do. I mean, they're drastically different. Insidious I just saw, we just got bought, and that was another one where we shot that in 2 days for under $1 million. And Sony bought it and we'll put it out. I'm not sure when, and maybe we'll do a few changes here and there, but I was really, really, really happy with it, and I hadn't done a horror movie before. Morning Glory I loved. It's a smart, classy, great comedy, and I think Harrison Ford's fantastic, as is Diane Keaton, of course, and Rachel is just great in it, Rachel McAdams. So I play her love interest. So that's a little more of charming, grounded boyfriend. But it was a lot of fun. Roger Michelle is just a great director. So
that movie does look like a lot of fun. It does look
it's
great.
Great.
I love you and Barry Munday. I mean, I love everything you've done.
Thanks.
I just want to tell you a favorite movie of all of ours on the show is Little Children. It's one of the most astounding movies we've seen in the past decade. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about Barry Munday with us.
Thanks. Appreciate it.